right, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Friday night live stream for Week 8 of the 2024 fantasy football season. Over the course of the next hour plus, we're going to be talking anything related to fantasy football, whether it is, potentially starter sit questions in regards to going into this weekend, the potential games that we have ahead of us, potentially a trade question, potentially waiver wire pickups, anything of the sort. If you're potentially even trying to prepare for next week, because there are teams that will be on bye week, you're trying to prepare for that, whatever it is, make sure to include your scoring format. The more context you provide within your question, whether you do so, send so in the live chat and or via super chat, the more context you provide, the easier it'll be for me to answer the question. And that's basically it. We're answering all questions. On the other monitor, I do have the Dodgers game, which obviously it's going to look like it's going to go down to the wire on this one. But either way, again, earlier today, we did drop the Hidden Gems video. I think this was about like 2 hours ago. I made it live on the channel. If you guys haven't checked it out, be sure to do so. At the end of that video, I do go ahead and share a couple entries in regards to Underdog going into this weekend that hopefully we can get back on the right track. As of late, I have been getting absolutely clipped by just like the slightest numbers possible every single time out. But either way, that's just the name of the game. And as we'll continue, we'll put our best foot forward and hope for the best. Outside of that, let's get into answering questions, shall we? In regards to the first question of the day was sent in from Michael, who says, pick two from the waivers. I have Bucky, Warren, Tracy, and Spears available in a full PPR. Going into this week, I would start Tracy and Warren out of the four. Bucky's still dealing with a turf toe injury. Spears is questionable to play, due to his hamstring. So I'll take the two healthy backs and the two backs that I expect to get the most touches out of the group. So it'll be Tracy and Warren in this circumstance. Thank you, Michael. Film Cash sends in a question. Says, I was offered Kamara and Adams for Bijan. Do I take it? In a bubble, I'd say yes. If I had more context regarding your team, regarding is it an 8-team league, 6-team league, 12, 10, 14, the more context that's provided, the easier it'll be to answer this. If it's a smaller league, I could justify not taking it, but if you're playing in like a 10 to 12 team league, I think, if Kamara and Adams are going to immediately be starters for your roster going forward, I think that, the right choice would be to take it. But that's only if they're going to be impactful, immediate starters, for the remainder of the season. Like if you already have a bunch of stud wide receivers and Adams is going to go straight to the bench, there's no really, point of doing so. Powerhouse sends in a question, says, any update on Tyreek Hill? As of right now, he's obviously still questionable. I'm anticipating he's going to play. He very rarely misses games due to injuries. And considering, there wasn't any notable news that was, negative over the course of this week, I'm going to assume that he'll be good to go. And then next question from Powerhouse was thoughts on BTJ this week. I don't love the matchup. I love the player. So obviously that plays into something in regards to his individual talent. The fact that there'll be a negative game script, so he should get himself more opportunity because Trevor should be throwing the ball for a majority of that game overall. Under that assumption, BTJ should be a solid play, but again, I don't love the matchup taking on that Green Bay Packers secondary. Ozzy Reyna sends in a question, says Kyler or Tua? I have them back-to-back ranked. Tua one spot ahead of him. The only thing that kind of keeps me concerned about Kyler is that he requires rushing upside. If rushing upside isn't there, it's not going to hit for him within the given week. That is my only concern there. So even though he has been far more active on the ground than not over the course of this season, I just rather play Tua in this circumstance just to be safe in this overall situation. Now, if someone like Tyreek Hill, which again is still questionable, doesn't end up playing somehow, some way, I just pivot to playing Kyler there. But again, I do anticipate to see Tyreek Hill play, and when he does, it should elevate Tua's overall potential for success. Death sends in the question and says, trade Bijan and Evans for JT and Higgins. At this point, if your record does not, have you in line to potentially making the playoffs in the absence of Mike Evans, you should probably take the deal because Mike Evans is not going to return until at least the earliest week 12 after their bye week. So if you're going to be missing him week 8, 9, 10, 11, and then, that's a full month of production that you could get out of Higgins and JT, who again, JT fully practiced today, should be in line to succeed. Yes, I would take the deal. If I was in your position, you need the wins now. It's something that I'm certainly taking at the moment. Thank you. Stephen Drake sends in a question, says, hey man, in a half PPR, I need 4 between Achane, Gibbs, Walker, Hunt, and Mason. Okay, you got really good options across the board, and Hubbard. Hubbard's not startable this week though. Out of that group, it's not even close. But for what you currently have on roster, the 4 that I would suggest in a half PPR are playing Gibbs, Hunt, Mason, and probably Walker. I think I'd leave Achane as the odd man out in that scenario. I don't think that he's a bad play. I think they're all top 12. Going into the given week, I just prefer the rest of their overall workloads in comparison. As for your next question, also, if Debo doesn't play without... if Debo doesn't play within OD, you start McMillan or Shakir. I don't know what that with... Okay, whatever that word is. Okay, it doesn't matter. Am I starting McMillan or Shakir? Assuming Debo's out. Going into the week, I would probably... Considering they're playing against Seattle, in Seattle, as it currently stands, in a half PPR, I'd play McMillan. In a full PPR, I'd probably go with Shakir there. Just a little bit more valuable considering his higher reception counts. Thank you. Jordan Cabot sends in a question. Thank you, Jordan. Jordan says in a PPR, we have DeAndre Hopkins, we have Keenan Allen, Demario Douglas, Christian Kirk, Jacoby Myers. Should I drop any of these guys to pick up Ricky Pearsall? Should I pick up any of those over Mark Andrews in the flex? Okay, so let's see here. Are we dropping any of these guys for Ricky Pearsall? Yeah, I would drop Christian Kirk for Ricky Pearsall. So that's what I would do. And then as for the next question, would I drop any of these guys, or should I pick one of these guys over playing Mark Andrews in the flex? Am I willing to roll one of them? I mean, I would be willing to roll Pearsall over Andrews in the flex under the assumption that, again, if Debo is out, at that point, I'd take it. Even then, now that we know that Jawan Jennings is for sure not going to play, I might even consider just playing Pearsall in that scenario as well. But for now, I mean, considering they're playing against, yeah, I'd probably do that. I'd probably play Pearsall there in the flex this week. I'm not too interested in playing Keenan Allen or D-Hop. Obviously, I want to drop Christian Kirk in this scenario. Jacoby Myers, I don't like the matchup. Douglas, I don't love it either, but I think he's probably the next best after Pearsall in that scenario. Junior sends in a question. Says, start one, Jacoby, Wanda Robinson, or Warren in the flex. Depends on scoring format. Junior, do me a favor and type your scoring format down in the description. Going back to Jordan Cabot's question, if I'm picking 4 of these players to have like as a starting option, or is it just to keep on roster, Jordan? When you say pick 4, what are we implying there? Is that an implication of who we're starting this week, or is that an implication of, who we're keeping on roster? Let me know down in the comment or in the live chat. Thank you. Let's hear. Akshay sends in a question. Says, start one in a PPR. We have Marv, we have Chase Brown, we have T. Higgins, we have Rashad White. Yeah, look, as long as T. Higgins is healthy and active, even if, healthy is not the right word. As long as he's active, he's in my starting lineup this week against the Philadelphia Eagles. If, in fact, he is inactive within the given week, I would then pivot to playing Rashad White. Thank you, Akshay. Dave sends in a question. Says, in a 10-team half PPR league, we have Love, Lamb, London, Devontae Smith, Kyron Williams, Achane, Brian Robinson, Njoku, Addison, Braylon Allen, Rashad White, Bigsby, McMillan, Hawkinson's on the IR. Any way to upgrade? I mean, Love doesn't need to be upgraded. Lamb is solid. So is London. So is Devontae Smith. Kyron's great. Achane's great. Njoku is good with Hawkinson as a combination. You have Brian Robinson alongside of Rashad White as your potential flexible options with Bigsby there. I mean, theoretically, you could go find a team that doesn't have as much running back depth as you and send them like a Rashad White plus Bigsby in order to get a singular player in return. But quite frankly, I like the depth that you have on roster considering the league format. Half PPR, it again tilts in the direction of running backs being a little bit more valuable in terms of when you have depth on team. So in this circumstance, unless, again, you're going to take 2 players and trade it for 1, which, again, you're certainly capable of accomplishing considering the depth you have on roster. You could take a Brian Robinson and a Rashad White and go 2 for 1 for a specific running back. If you're looking for that, maybe go get Jonathan Taylor right now before he comes back. Those kind of actions are definitely within the realm of possibility if that obviously interests you. All right, going back to the live chat, let me see if we got Junior and Jordan to comment there. Junior says it's a full PPR. Thank you, Junior. Okay, so in regards to this question, of the available in a full PPR scoring format, I'm going to play Wan'Dale Robinson. If I was going to rank it in order, it'd probably go Wan'Dale 1, Jacoby Myers 2, and then Warren 3. In a full PPR, again, Warren, depending on how that matchup goes against the Giants, he could get himself a couple receptions, but I don't know how much potential upside he has in that circumstance, considering we're only just seeing Russell Wilson now integrated within the offense. We don't know how much of a check down workload he is capable of. So yeah, for right now, it'd be Wan'Dale number 1, Jacoby number 2, Warren number 3. Thank you, Junior. Now, as for Jordan, let's see here. Jordan, where are you at? Let me see here. Control F, Jordan. He says start. Okay, cool. So if we're starting 4 of these potential options in this scenario. For this week, under the assumption you pick up Pearsall would start next to Demario Douglas. And then after that, I'd go with Keenan Allen third, and then probably Mark Andrews fourth. That's the way that I'd go about it. Thank you. Okay, let's see here. If we go on to the next question, we have one from Nathan Dennison. Thank you, Nathan. Says, which quarterback, Daniels, Tua, or Anthony Richardson? As of right now, I don't expect Jaden Daniels to play. So, again, if he's somehow active by Sunday morning, we'll throw him into the starting lineup. Otherwise, I think it's Tua out of the available quarterbacks that you have at this current moment. As for your next question, if Bigsby starts, should I start him over Jacobs in my flex? Should I consider dropping Anthony Richardson to pick up Pearsall or McMillan? Yeah, I would drop Anthony Richardson like a bad habit, and I'd immediately pick up Pearsall right now as we are speaking. So, yeah, easy peasy, pick up Pearsall. As for the potential of playing Bigsby over Jacobs, that would require I'd say objectively just no. It requires ETN to be out, but not only that, it requires a positive game script, which I don't believe is in the potential outcomes that we could see this upcoming weekend. I don't expect to see the Jacksonville Jaguars beating the Green Bay Packers in any sort of capacity. So in this scenario, I would just keep Jacobs in. Thank you. Daniel Barnes sends in a question. Says, hey, Andrew, in a full PPR, flex more Montgomery or BTJ? Really good question. Between those three, I'm probably leaning towards playing DJ Moore against Washington secondary, especially with Jaden Daniels out. Again, Jaden Daniels in that offense, they soak up so much time with their drives. The fact that it'll be Mariota against this Bears defense, it'll cause a lot of potential 3-and-outs, a lot of punting scenarios, which, again, this team is not comfortable with. That puts a lot of pressure on their defense to have to hold. And I think, of course, their weakest part of their defense is their secondary, and DJ Moore should be able to expose it like he did last year. So he's the number one. I would lean towards Montgomery number two and then BTJ number three out of those options there. Daniel, thank you. Quantified sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR, 0.3 per rushing attempt. Okay. Made 2 moves this week. Give me your honest input. Trade 1, Kyler Marvin Harrison for James Conner. Okay. Trade 2, Najee Harris for Stephon Diggs. Yeah, great. Look, the first trade, Kyler and Marvin Harrison for James Conner, again, in a 0.3 per rush league, that is a steal. I get the quarterback potential of Kyler Murray having himself, somewhere between 5 to 7 rushing attempts per game is relatively valuable, but in the long run, it's not that many points in comparison to a running back who's going to touch the ball and get rushing attempts somewhere between 15 to 20. So getting James Conner, a huge, take in that overall scenario, under the assumption, of course, Kyler wasn't your main starting quarterback, and you're not, you don't have to start Daniel Jones for the rest of the season. I think you'll be fine. As for Najee Harris for Stephon Diggs, I have no issue with that. As long as it's a full PPR, Najee Harris is going to be great, but so is Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs has demonstrated thus far this season that, where I had him ranked at the beginning of the summer, I probably should have left him there. I should not have moved him down. I should not have believed that Tank Dell was going to be as impactful, because Stephon Diggs is still a huge part of that offense and definitely still a prime prospect at the wide receiver position. So yeah, I have no issue with either of those trades. Double D23X says Pearsall or Odunze in a flex full PPR. Yeah, in a full PPR this week, I'll take Pearsall. Even in a rest of season conversation, I'd rather pick up Pearsall. Again, when I can get a wide receiver that's associated with the San Francisco 49ers offense, there's already inherent value there. On top of the fact that they utilized a first-round pick on him this most recent draft, that means there's a belief system already there. Now, maybe he's not the most polished receiver, but considering the circumstance of Juwan Jennings missing a second consecutive week with this hip injury, and on top of that, Brandon Ayuk out for the season, Christian McCaffrey not returning for a couple more weeks here, Kittle dealing with his foot injury, Debo dealing with pneumonia. Like, everything is pretty much presenting an opportunity for Pearsall to, give himself a chance, at very least, to be implicated within this offense rest of the way as a huge, kind of target option for this offense. All right, moving on to a question that comes in from Ninja Jake 209. DP says, are we rolling with Debo instead of Jaden Reed this week? No, I have Jaden Reed ranked higher. Also, should I trade Jacobs for Kamara? I'm okay with that. Again, understand the implicated risk. We would need to have Derek Carr come back. Derek Carr obviously not going to play this week, but the expectation is that he should return next week. And when he does, it will obviously grant a little bit more value. Not a little bit, a significant amount of value back into Kamara's overall workload, because the offense will at that point be functional in comparison to where it currently sits. So yeah, I don't mind the trade at all. Especially in a full PPR, I think it helps. Juan Vaca Ramirez sends in a question. Says in a full PPR, start three. Javonte Williams, BTJ, Cooper, or Waddle. Yeah, out of those potential options, I'm playing Javonte, I'm playing Waddle, and I'm probably playing. It's between BTJ and Cooper. As of right now, I'd probably continue to want to see more from Cooper. So I'll probably go Javonte, Waddle, BTJ as of right now. Thank you. Let's see here. Cal in the live chat says, are we starting D-Hop? No, probably not. Starting D-Hop's a little bit sketchy. I mean, again, you got to think about it this way. Just in the same way in which we were kind of worried about the overall workload production of Amari Cooper last week, because again, it was his first week within the offense, fully learning the entire playbook. Again, you cannot learn an entire playbook and install it within your own brain within one singular week unless you are some sort of savant. So in this circumstance, D-Hop is probably going to be utilized probably within like 40% of the offensive structure. He'll probably play 40% of the game. He'll get himself a couple target opportunities. That is a given. But if he scores a lucky touchdown, so be it. Outside of that, I think he's probably implicated for like maybe 3-4 catches, 30-40 yards, nothing crazy, because again, you have to understand that he's not going to play more than 50% of the snaps. If he was going to, I'd be very much so surprised, because again, it is very difficult to learn a brand new offense within 5 days. Not even 5 days. He just got traded on it was like Tuesday morning. So by the time he got there, got everything going, like he's only had a couple days. Yeah, I think by Sunday it'll be like 5. Question from Easy E in the chat. Thank you, Easy. Says I'm currently 3-4 in a super flex format. 3 wide receivers. Okay. Starting quarterbacks are Murray and Daniels. I have Nix as a backup. Perfect. Okay. Wide receivers are CeeDee Lamb, Cooper Kupp, Neighbors. Beautiful. BTJ, Coleman, along with Walker, Achane, and Montgomery running back. Okay. Tight end is Njoku with McBride. Defense is Detroit. Any changes? I mean, no, not really. I mean, literally, you've got as good of a team as you could possibly ask for in this scenario. As for, again, if Jaden Daniels starts, you play him. Otherwise, Bo Nix is a fantastic pivoting option. CD, Kupp, Neighbors. Obviously, Kupp was able to get himself a pretty solid week here in his first week back. Obviously, didn't look as good as Puka Nacua, but he hasn't looked as good as Puka Nacua since last year. So that's that. And then as for running backs, I don't change any of those. As for tight end, I don't change that. Detroit's got a great defense. Yeah, solid looking lineup going into the week. And in terms of any moves that you would make in the future, I mean, again, you could always theoretically make moves, but it would require like 2-for-1s, because you've got just like across the board, you have top 12 options at every position. So unless you're sending 2 players for one for another top 12 option, you just kind of hold. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Blue Jacket says, what about Taysom Hill? Should I pick him up? Nah, not really. I mean, again, I'm not really too big of a Taysom Hill guy in regards to this season. The way that the offensive coordinator, Kubiak, has kind of ran the system, it's not really implicated on him getting a lot of overall touches in the given week. I understand in the absence of Derek Carr, they may be wanting to run the ball more, but this is a pretty solid run stop defense. Am I starting him? Sure, in some scenarios. I do have him ranked within my tight end rankings, but it's not high enough to where I'm playing him over someone like Mark Andrews or Tucker Kraft in Njoku's, McBride's. As long as you have one of those solid starting tight ends at Cade Otton, I mean, these are the guys that are going to play, especially if it's any sort of PPR, half PPR format. Let's see, your DM sends in a question, says, Deontay Johnson, Garrett Wilson, Freiermuth for Lazard and Kelsey. Okay, so basically what I'm hearing, because Freiermuth has no value in my mind, I also believe that Lazard going forward is going to be very minimal value, and to an extent to where he is very much so unplayable. So it's Garrett Wilson and Deontay Johnson for Kelsey, which in this current circumstance is 100% reliant on what kind of wide receiver depth you currently have on roster to where you'd be accepting Kelsey in this circumstance. If you're giving away Deontay Johnson and Garrett Wilson, you'd have to have 3 more other solidified top 24, top 30 wide receivers on roster to make a trade like this. Otherwise, I think you're giving away too much. Robert says, do I sell Hopkins high off of name value? What do you think? No, I don't think you should sell him high. I think you should wait for him to have a good performance, then move him afterward. The reason why I said the exact same thing about Amari Cooper last week is because, again, name value will go far, but once people see that they actually have sustainable value, they'll be valued even more to an extent to where you can get names that you typically wouldn't be able to. Like, you can go try to sell Hopkins right now, but you wouldn't be able to get a name in comparison. Like, if you wait 2 weeks and D-Hop has a solid performance, let's say a 15-point week, at that point, you can maybe even move him for like a BTJ and get a player back that you would want to have rest of the season that is not, associated with Pat Mahomes and, all the volatility that kind of resides with him within the season. Wilson in the chat says Pittman or Waddle PPR rest season. Not even close in my mind. It's Waddle. Unless Joe Flacco starts for the Colts rest of the season, it's Waddle 10 times out of 10. Schnabel says, I'm so confused. Who do I start? Mooney, Olave, or Pearsall? I have currently Olave ranked last because, again, he doesn't have a starting. I mean, his starting quarterback is a backup rookie. So Olave would be the last option there. And in between Mooney and Pearsall, it's purely dependent on whether or not Debo is active. If Debo is not active on Sunday, you play Pearsall. Otherwise, it's Mooney that gets the start. So again, unless Debo Samuel somehow, someway misses this week, Mooney is your starter against Tampa Bay. Nothing to be confused about, to be honest, because you've got 3 good options there nonetheless. Eric says, Andrew, rest of season standard, Addison, McConkey, or Worthy. In a standard league where you get 0 points per reception, it's Worthy. Everybody else is irrelevant in this position. Wilson says, hey, Andrew, rest of season, half PPR. Would you rather have BTJ or Garrett Wilson? In a half PPR rest of season scenario, I'm probably leaning towards rather having BTJ. Okay, let's see here. GK sends in a question. Thank you, GK. Says, I'm currently 6-1. 12-team league, okay. Stash 2, Warren, Allen, Roshan, Vidal, and Corum. And Tucker or Benson. Was that Dalvin Cook, Elliott? Okay. So, Warren, Braylon Allen, Roshan, Vidal, Corum, Tucker. So as of right now, Warren is the number 1. As for the extension, so like after Tucker, you have Tucker, Benson, Cook, Elliott. I'll take Warren and Benson. Those are the 2 that I prefer to have on roster rest of the way. Now, if you have someone like Breece Hall on roster, then at that point, it would be in your best interest to have Braylon Allen on roster. If you have, for example, Kyron, you would keep Corum. If you have Swift, maybe Roshan's a good keep. If you have James Conner, you'd keep Benson, right? But yeah, Warren and Benson are the 2 that I want to keep. Otherwise, if you have an alternative option that is already on roster as a blue chip player starter and you can have their handcuff, then you should handcuff them. But otherwise, Warren and Benson are my number 1 and 2 prospects of that group. Thank you very much for the happy birthday wish. Appreciate it, GK. Octavio sends in a question. Says, I'm currently 5-2. Full PPR. Burrow, Kupp, Garrett Wilson, Kenneth Walker, Bijan, McBride, Mason. My bench consists of Higgins, Amari Cooper, Moss, Dowdle, Myers, Olave, Hopkins. Any trade targets I should target? Thanks. Okay, so considering you have Burrow, I'm not really replacing Burrow at this point. Bijan and Kenneth Walker are not replaceable either. Mason is the only contingent kind of option that you might want to look to move in the coming weeks. But again, I think it's too late to already move him. So Kupp, Garrett Wilson, solid. Higgins off the bench with Amari Cooper, solid. Moss can probably be dropped, but Dowdle's solid there as well. Olave's good. Hopkins good. Look, if you're going to make a move, you're going to try to utilize all of that wide receiver depth that you have on roster in order to make a move because your bench consists of Higgins, Amari, Olave, and Hopkins. So you have 4 startable wide receivers on your team, and because of the 10-team format, unfortunately, again, you have just too much abundance of depth. So what I would do in your scenario is I would take 2 of your wide receivers and trade it for a number 1. I would take Higgins and a Garrett Wilson and see if I can go land Drake London, legitimately. Because at that point, you'd have Kupp, London, Amari Cooper, Hopkins, Olave still on roster. And it really would not hurt you in the long run because, again, you'd be able to start more of these potential options. One of them will eventually go into the flex once Mason and his duties have already been served and done when McCaffrey comes. But that's kind of the stuff that I'm looking for. I'm looking for the ability to trade 2 stud wide receivers for one that is in the top 8 conversation. If it has to be a Puka, so be it. I don't care. But a Puka, a Neighbors, an A.J. Brown, a Jamar Chase, a C.D. Lamb, a Drake London, a Tyreek Hill, somebody of that top-tier caliber is what I would try to go after, giving them 2 players for one because maybe they're in need of a wide receiver. Maybe someone in your league most recently lost Mike Evans and they're in need. Maybe they lost Godwin, Ayuk, etc. There are teams that are probably suffering in that category that would want to get 2 of these wide receivers on their roster the rest of the way, whether it is as their starters or potentially as a flex. Red Sox 2240 says, in a PPR, I need 2. Quarterback is Jordan Love. We have Reed, Dobbs, Marvin Harrison, Pop Douglas. Yeah, I'm playing all of your Packers this week. Reed and Dobbs are both in my top 23 wide receivers in a full PPR, so those 2 would be fired up in this circumstance. Thank you. Justin sends in a question, says, Puka outshines Kupp every time. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. That's what we expected this offseason, right? We didn't expect Kupp to outproduce Puka, did we? Again, it's just a matter of the youth and the matter of being able to stay healthy. Obviously, we did not anticipate Kupp to look as average as he did last night, but hopefully he'll get healthier as time goes on. Heisenberg sends in a question and says it's in the chat. Okay, cool. So Heisenberg says, full PPR, start 3 wide receivers, BTJ, Waddle, Neighbors, and Reed. Okay, between those 4, I'm going to play Neighbors, Reed, and Waddle. BTJ gets the bench. Next question. I want to sit Neighbors because of the matchup, but I don't know. I'm currently 3-4. I need this win. Also, would you trade Javonte Williams and Murray for Jalen Hurts? My RB2 is Najee Harris. Look, Javonte Williams is probably going to go for, I want to say, somewhere between 15 to 20 points this week. So if you're looking to try to win this week, I don't know if that technically is the move. But again, if you'd rather just have the solidified quarterback rest of the way and you have more depth than just Najee Harris at RB2, like maybe you have an RB3 on your bench as well that could eventually, when a bye week arises, because again, next week, the Steelers go on bye, you're going to need a backup. So if you don't have Najee or a backup for Najee next week, you probably should be keeping Javonte in that scenario. But yeah, if I was in your position, I would keep Neighbors in the lineup. He's proven by far and away that he can be his upside is as good as the rest. Like I'm talking about, he is top tier in terms of his potential for upside. In any given week, he could go for 25 points, and we would not blink or flinch at the idea of that. Bruce Cowdrey sends in a question. Says, please rank for DFS full PPR. I don't play DFS. I have no idea how you would go about it. But if we're just looking for totally upside players, I think in this scenario, God, I'm just going to rank it the way that I would rank it normally in terms of how I have my stuff, my system ranked in terms of potential. I currently have it as McMillan, Bateman, and Tillman in that exact order. Thank you. The S Box says, do I drop Demario Douglas for McMillan? I don't think you have to, but I think it's... If you're playing in a full PPR, I'd be willing to keep Demario Douglas. But if you're playing in a half PPR standard, then I'm okay swapping to McMillan there. Jackie sends in a question. Says, Higgins hurt. He's okay. He'll be fine. Start Swift in the flex in a full PPR. Let me check my rankings. I think I already have Swift ahead of him in a full PPR, but let me just see if I actually do have it like that. Let's see here. So let's look up where I have Swift. So as it currently stands, yeah, in a full PPR, I already have Swift ranked higher than Higgins. So yeah, Swift is the play. Thank you. Let's see here. Abdi sends in a question. It says, in a 14-team PPR, Marvin or Terry? I don't like either of them. I'm going to be totally honest. But if I had to play one of the two, I am playing Terry McLaurin. Next question. Really scared to start Terry with Mariota, but damn, Kyler's so... Yeah, I'm not going to... Look, I don't want to play Marvin Harrison against Jalen Ramsey. That's what I want to avoid, if anything. Also, for my finances league, Dobbins or Achane. I mean, honestly, they're both really good plays. I don't think there's a wrong answer, but considering the full PPR format, I think Achane is the play in that circumstance because of his receiving upside. Thank you. All right, scrolling down here, we had a question that came in from Luke C, who says, why aren't you on Cedric Tillman train yet? What do you mean? He's a solid play. Do I love him? No. Again, you got to think about it this way. Rookie year did nothing. This year has one solid game, yes, but that was with 3 different quarterbacks. It's purely going to be dependent on what the heck we're going to see out of Jameis Winston. Until I get a full designation of what Jameis Winston is going to elevate him to, there's nothing that says that Jameis Winston doesn't come out and only funnel targets everyone else, right? It's very difficult to predict what the offense is going to structurally look like in terms of their separation of overall target share when I haven't seen more than 11 passing attempts from Jameis Winston and only 5 completions. So Cedric Tillman is a guy that I'm kind of waiting to see if he's even worth it because, quite frankly, I don't trust the offense, I don't trust the quarterback, and I don't really trust the receiver itself. As for your next question, Pacheco injury was bad, except Pacheco, Ferguson for Hunt and Otten in a PPR. Rest of season, rank... Okay, so here's the thing. For that trade question, I'm not trading for Hunt. Hunt is going to disappear in, I'd say, 3 weeks, so probably by week 11. So if you're in a position to make the fantasy playoffs, you are in a far better circumstance by keeping Ferguson and Pacheco if you were already in line to make the playoffs. And then rest of season, rank Olave, Devontae Adams, Deontay Johnson. Yeah, number 1 would be Devontae Adams. Number 2 would be Olave. Number 3 would be Deontay Johnson. Thank you. Grant sends in a question, nothing attached to it. Grant below says, Olave or McConkey? I'd rather play Olave this week. Thank you. Moving on to a question that comes in from James P, who says, Chubb, Bigsby, White, Chase Brown, pick one in a full PPR. I'll play Rashad White out of the group. Number 2 would be Chase Brown. Number 3 would be Tank Bigsby. Number 4 would be Nick Chubb. Thank you. CS Derek 13 says, okay, got a big log jam at RB2 this week and could use some help. My plan was to start Chuba Hubbard. Nope, no thank you. But I've also got Pollard, Rashad White, Chubb, and Chase Brown. Yeah, so if I was in your position and you're playing in a full PPR format, Rashad White's number 1, Pollard is number 2, Chase Brown is 3, Chuba Hubbard 4, Nick Chubb 5. Again, from the top to the bottom, Rashad, Pollard, Chase Brown, Chuba, Chubb. If it's a half PPR, Pollard is your start. Thank you. Calvary sends in a question. Says in a half PPR, team suggestions, we have Jordan Love, we have Amon-Ra, we have Dobbs, we have Bijan, we have Najee Harris, Tucker Kraft, Pearsall. My bench consists of Zay Flowers, Xavier Worthy, Demario Douglas, Tyrone Tracy, Bucky Irving, Anthony Richardson. Start 2 wide receivers and 2 running backs in 1 flex. Okay. You got some pretty solid options here, Cavalry. Jordan Love, obviously your starting quarterback. As for your tight end, obviously you know you're running Tucker Kraft. So you've got that combination ready to go. As for your starting running backs for this week, Bijan Robinson and Najee Harris are by far and away your best. It's not even close. Because again, your next options after that will be Tyrone Tracy and Bucky Irving, which again, don't really love their matchups and or their utilization as of right now. As for Amon-Ra, obviously that's an auto start. Next to him, it would be... Okay, so I think it depends. Zay Flowers is a little bit of a sketchy prospect. I think Dobbs, because he plays against the Jaguars, is probably like the clear and away number 2. Pearsall and Flowers in the flex. Here's the thing. Pearsall, if there was no Debo, I'd say 100% yes. If Debo plays, I'd consider playing Zay Flowers, mainly because, again, if at any point it could be a competitive matchup and he can get himself those double-digit targets that we know he's capable of, when he's highly utilized within the offense, like it's an automatic 15 fantasy points. And that's my only concern. I don't want to leave that on the bench. But for right now, I'm okay considering the ankle injury, considering the expectation of a blowout. I'm okay playing Pearsall there. So I think you've got the lineup set pretty primed and ready to go for this weekend. I don't think you're really changing anything in comparison to what you currently have. Somebody asked Njoku or Pitts this week. I'd rather play Njoku. Joseph Mai says, hey, Andrew, in a half PPR, would you start out of JSN, Dobbs, Wicks, Watson, Pearsall, Ridley, Douglas, Tillman, Adunze, Coleman, Elijah Moore? Between those options, the best ones are Dobbs, Pearsall, and JSN in that exact order. Let's see here. B. Sir sends in a question. Says, in a 12-team full PPR league, an owner dropped Chase Brown. My running backs are Brees, Bucky, Tracy. Cool. I'm stacked to wide receiver. Should I spend the remaining 70 of Fab out of 100? Okay. Depending on how this works, if I was in your league, considering I expect Chase Brown to be the starting running back of that team rest of the way, okay? And obviously there are still going to be some upcoming injuries. I would be willing to spend probably, let's say, 60 of it. I want to give myself a little bit of cushion just in case. But if you actually think you can 100% confirm it with 70, then I just empty the mag on him. Thank you. Moving on to Connor Pollock, who says, would you trade Hurts, Chubb, and Marvin Harrison for Mahomes, Jacobs, and Neighbors? Yes, instantly, no questions asked. It would be on my team by the next 7 minutes. It'd be done. So yes, I will take Mahomes, Jacobs, Neighbors rest of the season. No questions asked. Thank you. James P says, Kraft or Ferguson in a full PPR. For this weekend, that one becomes a little bit closer because I do like Ferguson within the overall matchup as a whole, but I would still play with Kraft there, mainly because of the matchup and his recent utilization down in the red zone being so prominent. So, you know, if Ferguson had himself the red zone target share that he was experiencing last year, this season, I'd be 100% on the Ferguson train in terms of this overall conversation, but I think Kraft is kind of this year's Ferguson in that scenario. Flipside Fishing sends in a question. Thank you, Flipside. Says, in a 10-team league, we have a full PPR. I'm currently 5-2. On bench, I have Mostert, Juwan Jennings, Javonte Williams, and Jameson Williams. Would you drop any of them for Pacheco, Hawkinson, or Pearsall? Yes, yes, and yes. Okay. So in this position, my question is, can you put any of these players on your IR? If you cannot move a Juwan Jennings to your IR position, and you would have to theoretically drop players outright, I would drop Mostert right now for Pacheco for the future of the season. And depending on who you have on tight end, I would also be willing to drop, like, At this point, I'd be willing to drop Jamison Williams for Hawkinson if you didn't have an already established tight end. If you do have an established tight end, keep it as is, and then keep the rest on roster. Thank you. Moving on to a question from Lethal Jake, who says, in a 12-team full PPR 3 wide receiver league, sent off Hopkins for Jalen Hurts and Ray Davis. Okay. I have James Cook as my I have Jay Cook, and my quarterback is Anthony Richardson. Yeah, okay, cool. So, I mean, at that point, you're upgrading quarterback tenfold. My wide receivers are Nico Collins and A.J. Brown's. Okay, very well. Marvin Harrison, Keenan Allen. What do you think? I mean, I don't love the wide receivers. Obviously, once Nico Collins gets healthy, you'll be at a far safer position. Depending on what your record looks like right now, I do believe this is a solid trade for you in terms of being able to upgrade that quarterback to a position to where you are blindly starting Jalen Hurts rest of the way, and he's already passed his bye week, so you don't have to have any concerns in regards to him missing any time. So I think that is a great trade. As for your wide receiver depth as it currently stands, obviously, we're waiting for Nico to come back, and we'll just have to suffice with what you have on roster until then. I'm Gucci Upolo, sends in a question, says PPR start 3. We have Dell, Waddle, Connor, Marvin Harrison, and Olave. Cool. So out of those available options, my favorite of the bunch would be playing Connor, Waddle, and Dell this week. I would bench Marvin Harrison, and I would bench Olave. Until Derek Carr comes back, Olave is a lesser option. Until we get a better matchup or more of a target share for Marvin Harrison, he is also a bench. So again, Connor, Waddle, and Dell would be the 3 starts. CS Derek 13 says, thanks for the help, man. Love the videos. No problem. I'm glad I can help in any single way. Let's see here. Anthony C says, if Higgins can't go, should I play Pearsall or McMillan? I'd rather play Pearsall this week. Thank you. Moving on to Calvary, who sends in a follow-up, says, I play in a 10-man league, so there are a ton of people on the bench. Would you trust Bateman or McConkey or Sutton or Lockett more than any of the ones that I had on my list? Just scared because the flex is rough. Yeah, I mean, looking at your team as a whole here, considering you have Xavier Worthy, Demario Douglas, Tyron Tracy, Bucky Irving, Anthony Richardson. So, okay, let me see when the, let's see here, Packers schedule. Okay, so the Packers don't have a bye week until week 10. So you're going to need to have a quarterback on roster that is applicable to week 10. So if we go to NFL week 10, let's see if the potential of Anthony Richardson is even going to start for your team. So in week 10, Anthony Richardson would have to take on the Buffalo Bills, which I have no interest in firing him up against, okay? Because that secondary plays incredibly well. So in this scenario, if I was in your position right now, unless you plan on trading Anthony Richardson or you find someone that is interested, he, in my opinion, is the immediate drop, because at that point, going into next week, I think if you're kind of preparing for week 10 bye week of Jordan Love, I'd probably be looking in the direction of maybe Matthew Stafford at that point, potentially looking across the board here. Maybe if Dak Prescott is available in your league, that could work as well. Let's see what other potential, even Russell Wilson at that point in that week could be solid. Caleb Williams would be solid there. I think Daniel Jones against Carolina could also work. There's many of options that I would actually be very comfortable rolling with in that scenario. So I think Anthony Richardson is probably a drop. Now, as for the names that you mentioned that are potentially available, as in Bateman, McConkey, Sutton, Lockett, out of those available, I'd probably feel pretty comfortable picking up Bateman or Sutton. Between the two of them, if I had to make the full designation, I think I just roll with for right now, I'll just roll with the hot hand of Bateman. Let's just pick it up and see what comes of it. Maybe it becomes a trade piece for you in the future. Thank you. Let's see here. Denon sends in a question, says, is Debo worth starting over Terry? Absolutely, yes. Now, I understand that there's a lot of implied risk, but I would assume that the medical staff of the San Francisco 49ers are going to have to give him the thumbs up. And he's going to have to give himself the thumbs up to be able to go out there and play. Now, obviously, last week he played 4 to 6 snaps before he left that game. There's a potential that it could occur, but I would assume that based on his whole week of preparation and obviously being discharged from the hospital, I would assume that he's in a far better state currently. So yes, if it was my team, I would play Debo over Terry McLaurin this week. All right, Pavan sends in a question, says, greetings and salutations, 2 different leagues. Both are a PPR. Pick one. We have Pickens, Mooney, Chuba, or Pop Douglas. Between those 4 options, the number 1 selection is Pickens. Clear and away, my favorite of the bunch. As for the next question, other team, pick 2, Chubb, Hopkins, Coleman, Judy, Pearsall. Between those options, I don't love a lot of those. I think Pearsall's the number 1 for sure. In a full PPR, then it just becomes a matter of which wide receiver I'm playing, which I'd probably go with Coleman as the number 2. I'd wait for Hopkins for probably another week before I can fire him up. So pure salt and Coleman. Thank you. Juice Fino sends in a question. Thank you, Juice. Juice says, in a full PPR, Sutton, Douglas, Tolbert, Bateman. In a full PPR, I think I'm very much so enticed to play Demario Douglas in that scenario. So I probably will. Just going to hope that he doesn't have a bad lunch before the game and leave in the second half just like he did last week because of the quote-unquote illness. Again, when you go to London, you got to be careful. So either way, in this scenario, yes, in a full PPR, it would be Douglas as my favorite of the bunch. Dragon Slayer says, trade McLaurin and Pacheco for Nico Collins. You'd only ever do so if you are able to sustain 2 more weeks in the absence of Nico Collins minimum, and you have enough running back depth to justify losing Pacheco for that kind of extension of time from weeks 12, well, more like weeks 11 through 17. Like if you have Kareem Hunt on roster and you're like, listen, I'm just going to continue to roll them, and then once the swap manages to happen, I'll just play Pacheco, then yeah, I'd keep it. But if you don't have Hunt and you have no patience for Pacheco / McLaurin, then I'd be okay with it, but it has to be a smaller league. I have a hard time thinking that, by the time that Nico comes back, it's probably the same time that Pacheco returns. And at that point, we're talking about, a 2-for-1 that I would prefer to have the Pacheco-McLaurin side once they're both fully healthy and Jaden Daniels is back, of course. Trive sends in a question. Says, pick 1 wide receiver, 1 flex, PPR, Douglas, Pittman, Pollard, Henry, Dowdle, ETN. Out of that group, I mean, if you're starting 1 wide receiver, it's probably Demario Douglas. If you're starting a flex, it's probably Pollard in that scenario. I'd consider playing Henry, but I don't know if I want to have that many shares of New England Patriots this week. Wilson says, happy birthday, Andrew, and half PPR. I have Amon-Ra, Puka, Reed, BTJ, Olave, Deontay Johnson. Would you trade BTJ and Reed for Lamb? You have Amon-Ra, Puka, Reed. Okay, so yeah, I mean, look, at this point, I think it is giving up a lot, but I'm going to assume you playing like a 10 or 8 team league to the point to where, again, you're going to start Amon-Ra and Lamb as your 1 and 2 every week rest of the season. And now that you have Puka back, he's going to be your number 3. And once a bye week hits, Olave will fill in. Or Deontay Johnson if he has to. So honestly, I don't mind the trade. I'd make it. Give me Lamb rest of the season. Roger says, stay away from Debo. And being a decoy all day. I mean, it's possible that we might get decoy Samuel out there, but again, we thought it was going to be decoy Puka yesterday potentially, and that didn't even occur, right? So you just never know. It's all speculatory at this moment. B. Van says, would you drop Quentin Johnston? Yes. Tolbert or Tillman or Estimate? I mean, I'd be willing to pick up Tolbert or Tillman, either of those two. I have no issue with either of them. Obviously, we're past the bye week for Tolbert, so that's promising, but he does get Brandon Cooks to come back eventually, so Tillman probably the pickup there. Joseph Mai says, another question, Andrew. Would you trade in a full PPR? Okay, would you do this trade in a full PPR? Give AJ Brown and JT for Barkley and Adams? Probably not. No, I'd prefer to have JT and AJ Brown rest of the way. Thank you. Let's see here. Cavalry sent in a follow-up. Says Godwin looks to be out rest of the season, right? Yes, that is correct. So if you have him on roster, you can drop him as well. Hey Andrew, if you made a TD scorer parlay, who is for sure getting in the end zone this Sunday? You know what? Great question. Let's pull up Underdog and let's go make that right now. I think that's just a perfect transition. Let's go to screen capture. Let's go to Pick'em. Okay, here we go. So if I'm making a only scoring touchdowns kind of connection here, obviously Derrick Henry begins the connection force because, again, he is an absolute monster in terms of finding the end zone in many of circumstances, right? I think if any running back or any player this season was 7 of 7, I think they'd also be implicated in this overall conversation. Now, if we're talking about other potential automatic touchdowns within the overall week, again, I'm looking for mainly running backs. So in this scenario, I'd go Mixon as well, taking on this defense that cannot stop the run, and Mixon has been incredible all season long. He has also, in healthy games, been 3 of 3 in terms of touchdowns scored, so he'd be implicated as the next player of this overall bunch. Then if we continue on, we go back to NFL. I think there are many of players that could be in this conversation. I think considering David Montgomery didn't score a touchdown last week, I think that he probably legitimately has himself a really good chance of doing so. I think the same argument can be made that Jahmyr Gibbs could score, but again, they prefer to have David Montgomery as that goal line back. So I'll probably lean in his direction just ever so slightly. What's another player? Oh, let's go back to not NBA, NFL. What's another running back? Like Barkley's always great, but again, I don't feel as supremely confident on the overall aspect of it. Now, if I'm potentially putting together any wide receivers in this overall conversation, AJ Brown could be a player that I'd be interested in potentially rolling in. Let me see. What other running backs am I forgetting? Jonathan Taylor, I'd probably wait on. I mean, I don't even think that's a bad play either, but I wouldn't throw it with these three. I'm trying to for sure hit this week. These three I think are really strong though, for sure. Jacobs is not bad, but they don't run the ball near the goal line. But again, he could always have a receiving touchdown, which could end up saving his week. Somebody in the chat says Brian Robinson. Without Jaden Daniels, I'm not sure of how guaranteed that is with Marcus Mariota at quarterback. That's my only concern there. I think I'd rather lean towards playing DeAndre Swift in that matchup, if anything, or I go with Breece Hall in this scenario. I'd have to look these over a little bit more in terms of potential touchdown. Like Kenneth Walker's pretty strong in this scenario as well, in my opinion, especially considering his receiving upside. Juice Vino in the live chat says, I feel like all these running backs have a good matchup. Full PPR, need 2 out of Hunt, Mason, Rashad White. Thanks, Goat. Yeah, you know what? You made a great point. Hunt and Mason are actually, like, without a doubt, I think guys that I would want to throw in on this. I'll take Kareem Hunt here. And by the way, answering your question, Juice, I would play Hunt and Mason. And I think Jordan Mason could also be implicated. Like, I don't see a way in which the Dallas Cowboys win this game. I do not. Now, somebody can tell me that I'm completely stupid for that. Go for it. Because, quite frankly, I just don't know that they can stop the run. And if you can't stop the run, that is what the entire Kyle Shanahan offense is predicated on. Running the ball into play actions, right? So, in this scenario, I might even take Jordan Mason here. When was the last time he scored a rushing touchdown? I think it's been a while, right? Let me go pull up another link here. Jordan Mason stats. I think it's been a little while here since he has scored a touchdown recently. He hasn't scored a rushing touchdown since week 4 against New England. The last 3 games has been touchdown-less. I think this might be the week where he gets himself back in the end zone. Obviously, last week, Brock Purdy stealing 2 rushing touchdowns. That also kind of provides a little bit of the, potential for the overall vulture protection. But I think these are pretty solid. If I had to be totally safe, I would just get rid of Mason and I'd run these 4. And I probably will right now. I think, what is it? It's a 5.65x. Do I have any multipliers here that I can throw on top of it? Nope. So pretty much like 10 for 56. I mean, again, a lot of them are expected, especially like this. But yeah, I don't mind that. I'll take that as an overall play. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's swap back to the regular live stream format, and we'll come back here if we need to. All right, continuing on with some of these questions. Sith Lloyd, what's up, man? Angel says, I have JT and Achane, St. Brown and Garrett Wilson starting. Pretty good looking team there. What record says, sorry to interrupt, but I have to watch Hidden Gems video first. Okay, sounds good. Thanks, man. Let's see here. Football says, in a full PPR, do I trade DJ Moore and Josh Jacobs for Cooper Kupp and Aaron Jones? I would say yes. Chico 410 sends in a question. Says, I got DK out, Ayuk out, Jameson Williams out, Pacheco out, Stevenson stinks. Yep, that's true. I got JT back, though. I need flex option. Pearsall, Tolbert, Madison, or Stevenson. Yeah, it's Pearsall. Thank you very much. Appreciate the question, Chico. Let's see here. Hi, Andrew. In a PPR, do you prefer Waddle or Amari Cooper? This week, I prefer Waddle. Brandon says, rank them. Full PPR, Chase Brown, Debo, D-Hop, Olave. Yeah, as of this week, it would be Debo number 1, Chase Brown number 2, D-Hop. Sorry. Debo, Chase Brown, Olave, D-Hop. 1 through 4. Thank you. Slith Lord says, Dontavion Wicks or Dalvin Cook? If I'm stashing one of the two, it's Dontavion Wicks. Dalvin Cook did not look great last year. It doesn't matter what team he was a part of. He was not a great runner. I think the decline for his age and his overall usage has arrived. And unfortunately, obviously, Dalvin Cook is not going to be of much value going forward. His days have come and gone. So Dontavion Wicks would be the stash in that scenario, Sith. Tay says, hey, Andrew, in a full PPR, start Marvin or Pop Douglas this week? Honestly, I'd start Pop Douglas in a full PPR. Let's see here. Alan D says, in a full PPR, Pollard, JSN, or Bigsby? I probably end up playing JSN in that scenario because of the absence of DK Metcalf. Pollard second, Bigsby third. Timestamp says, Rashad White or Dobbins in a half PPR. I'd rather play Dobbins there. Wan'Dale Robinson or JSN half PPR. I'd rather play JSN there. Joshua says, do you plan on doing a rest of season video this year? They really helped last year. I might. Again, the schedule is pretty packed in. Obviously, it would require a hell of a lot of effort. If I was to do it, I'd have to prepare it on a Sunday because I stream every night. That is the main integrator. So it's basically rest of season rankings or live stream every day. And as of right now, the live streaming has taken maximum priority in this scenario. Just giving you the full context of the transparency of whether or not there will be. Chances are there won't. But if I'm inspired to do so in the upcoming future, it would come out on a Monday because I would record it on a Sunday night. Z1 sends in a question. Says, should I start JSN over AJ Brown or Malik Neighbors? No, absolutely not. No chance in hell. Thank you. Waddle or Jacobs in the flex depends on scoring format. If it's a full PPR, I'll take Waddle. If it's a half or a standard, I'll take Jacobs. Full PPR, Kareem Hunt or David Montgomery this week? I'd rather play Kareem Hunt this week. Hey, Andrew, non-PPR, would you start Debo if he suits up or start Pearsall? I think Debo has inherent risk, but if he does suit up, I would assume that he's going to be at a pretty full capacity. So again, if he's active, he would be in my lineup in comparison to Pearsall. Let's see here. Hi, Andrew. Please help me with this week's lineup. Pick 2 running backs, 1 flex. I can't choose clearly. We have Mason, Achane, Jonathan Taylor, Montgomery, and Kenneth Walker. Wow. Yeah, I don't blame you, brother. You got a lot of options here. A good problem to have. I don't know if it's a good problem to have. This is a headache. Okay, so you have quite literally 6 really solid starting options. Honestly, I'm going to be totally honest, Maddie. If you took let's say you took a dice, okay, a 6-sided dice, and you designated every single one of these names to a specific number, and you rolled the dice 3 times, and you got 3 different numbers, I'd honestly think that's a great method to utilize. Now, as for what my suggestion is, completely different. Assuming this is a full PPR, which it is, I'd play Achane number 1, I'd play Kenneth Walker 2, and I'd play Mason number 3. Those would be the 3 that I feel most comfortable rolling with in a full PPR format with the potential for the most upside in this circumstance. But again, if you did the 6-sided dice rule, I think that could work as well. Appreciate it. Let's see here. Waddle or... Okay, we take care of that. Ace007 says, Mooney or Zay Flowers in a full PPR? I feel like Mooney is safer. Yeah, he is safer, and he has a lot of upside this weekend. Schnabel says, in a 12-team full PPR 5 and 2 start sit, Josh Allen, Kenneth Walker, Jordan Mason, Reed, Mooney, Kincaid, Hunt, Eckler, Chargers, Ricky... Yeah, Hunt. I mean, look, as of right now, Schnabel, I'm not playing Eckler. I'm playing Ricky Pearsall in that flex. That's what I'm doing this weekend. Thank you. Kraft or Kate Otten? I'd rather play Kraft this weekend. Thank you, Natty. Tim O says, drop Kirk for Ridley in a full PPR. Please and thank you. I don't want either of them on my roster. So if you want to make the swap just to see if Ridley has some sort of value this weekend, sure. But understand, like, D-Hop didn't even play that much to where he is impacting Ridley's value. The issue with Ridley's value is quarterback play, offensive play calling competency, and the lack of his ability to make plays when given the opportunity. So really, it's just a trifecta of a disaster. It's honestly the Bermuda Triangle. Do not send wide receivers to Tennessee unless you want them to disappear. Nay Ray sends in a question. I think Nathan Ray changed his question or his name. It says, Baker or Caleb in a 6-point per passing touchdown league? I'd prefer to play Caleb Williams this weekend. Also, Ricky Pearsall over Garrett Wilson? Probably not, no. If we were getting into a situation in which there was no Debo and that was confirmed, I'd say, you know what, maybe we could do that. But until then, with Lazard most likely out, I think I'd probably stick with Garrett Wilson there. Chris Berry sends in a question. Thank you, Chris. Chris says, in a start 2 scenario, Wicks, Leggett, Kirk, Shepard, and Bigsby. Okay. So, if in fact ETN is out, I think Bigsby is a very strong start and an automatic out of the group. Even if ETN is in, there is an argument to be made in a half PPR standard where Bigsby is the number 1 or 2 option within this overall circumstance. I am not playing Shepard. I am not playing Leggett. I am not playing Kirk. It is Wicks and Bigsby as my favorite of the bunch. Leggett against that secondary, especially considering he'll be matching up against, whichever one of those cornerbacks lines up against him, it is not going to be a great week for Leggett, especially if it's Patrick Surtain. Christian Kirk, again, does not get enough opportunity in a negative game script this week against this specific defense. Evan Ingram should eat more often than anybody. So it will be the Ingram show. So it's really just between Wicks, Shepard, and Bigsby, which again, Shepard has not done anything much as of thus far this season. I understand he'll get more workload in the absence of all the other wide receivers, but yeah, I'd rather stick with Wicks in an advantageous matchup alongside of Bigsby. CS Derek 13 says, do you see McMillan playing a big role with Tampa Bay now? Absolutely. I mean, just off of the words that the offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, said earlier this week, like he's really excited about utilizing McMillan. Now, again, he did mention that they're going to utilize a lot of different receivers in order to try to recoup the value that they lost out of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, but he wanted to reiterate that it is impossible to recoup the specific workload that Chris Godwin was putting forth every week. So regardless of who's taking his spot, we can't expect those numbers. But McMillan, I expect to be very much so utilized within the offense at a high capacity. He had 8 targets last week. Additionally, had himself over 100 air yards. So as long as the deep receiving threat and opportunity is going to be there, the scheme itself is strong enough to get these wide receivers open in space to be relevant options. So yeah, I'd say McMillan's solid top 36 wide receiver. Obviously, upside of a touchdown would get him into that top 24 conversation for sure, though. But again, it's very difficult to kind of predict the kind of scenario. Great catch on the name change. Listen, brother, you've been around here for a while, of course. A lot of the names in this chat I recognize immediately. I try to answer them all, but again, when I see a name like that, I'm just going to call it out. Let's see here. Full PPR. Should I trade AJ Brown and Swift for Tyreek Hill, Achane, and T. Higgins? Yes. I'll take Tyreek Hill, Achane, and T. Higgins rest of the season very comfortably there. Aiden says, happy to see you committed. You were to the touchdown parlay question. Okay. I appreciate everything that you do. I knew I was to get you talking. Got some money on some running backs. Let's win some money this week. That's right. Any wide receiver touchdown locks? All right. You know what? Let's go for it, shall we? Listen, anytime you ask me about potential plays for an entry slip, I'm all in on it. Okay, so this is the ones that I like. Drake London has been a machine in terms of scoring touchdowns. Absolute machine. I'm all in on that. Okay, additionally, I like the idea of the potential of a Jaden Reed touchdown this week. Rushing or receiving does not matter. Additionally, if I'm going to I'm going to throw AJ Brown in there. I have a hard time not throwing AJ Brown in there. These are 3 that I'm pretty confident. Wait, let's throw that back in. Okay. And then if I go back to the NFL, who's other wide receivers that I'm like super confident with? I think about Tank Dell. I really would. I'm actually on the what's it called? On the fence on it, but for right now, I'd also go with Tyreek Hill. Again, I have a hard time thinking he doesn't throw the ball over this defense the whole time. Tyreek Hill's been bundled up for weeks because of it. So anyway, who's another receiver that could potentially score a touchdown that I'm a little bit more confident about than the rest of the potential options? Nothing there. Nothing I see here that I love. It's either Garrett or Devontae Adams. I couldn't tell you off the top of my dome as to which one is going to end up in the end zone. Seattle receivers, not so confident. Okay, so that's basically it. So these are the 4. Okay. Drake London, Jaden Reed, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill. Obviously, 3 of these guys are in my top 6 rankings for a reason, because they're implicated to score touchdowns way more often than other receiving options. Now, what I will want to potentially present as a conversation point in regards to potential touchdowns. When I go look at targets, I mentioned this in regards to the overall video of wide receiver rankings. Thus far this season, the number 2 in targets in terms of red zone thus far this season is Drake London. There's a reason why he leads the NFL in receiving touchdowns, okay? So you know what I'm actually going to do? Scratch this. I'm switching it up here, okay? Instead of, wait. Kittle needs to be added to this list. Okay. So now I need to get rid of some receivers. Potentially, I get rid of Tyreek Hill and AJ Brown. But let me go look at the red zone targets this season. So Kittle is number 3 amongst all players in red zone targets, tied for first with Drake London in red zone touchdowns. Other players that are in the top tier of this conversation, both Allen Lazard and Garrett Wilson are both in the top 5. Sorry, they're both in the top 4 of red zone targets this season. So maybe it's a week, hear me out, where it's a Devontae Adams game. Okay, maybe we get rid of, okay, we've got too many players here. Let's get rid of Jaden Reed. Let's give it to AJ Brown. Let's give it to Tyreek Hill real quick. Let's go with these really quickly, just in terms of red zone fiends, because we know they're getting targets in the red zone. Looking in terms of, what else do we have here? Mike Evans is up there, but again, he's not playing. George Pickens is up there, but George Pickens has a lot of targets, but again, we'd have to wait and see what the Russell Wilson era kind of continues to look like. I think if anything, this seems more plausible. The inherent risk that is implied with the potential of throwing in somebody of the caliber of like AJ Brown. I know AJ Brown's a great player. I want to take it. I just, I feel like it might chop me at my shins if I do. The guy scored a touchdown every single healthy game this year. Yeah, you know what? Let's take it. He's a beast. Okay. Maybe we just throw Tyreek Hill in here and just send it. Just full confidence. So 5 legs, a bunch of monsters. It's a 40x. So if I put $3 on it, I win 120. Let me... $3 is 120. Okay, so let's put $5 on it, and it's 202. All right, fuck it. Here we go. Drake London, George Kittle, Devontae Adams, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, anytime touchdowns, $5 for 202. Confirm that. Move myself back onto the other side of the screen. $5 for 202. Everybody sees that, right? Okay, if you're interested, you could potentially follow, and that'll be it. Okay, continuing on, let's go back to the live stream and then answering questions. Appreciate you guys taking the time to experience that with me. We'll continue on. All right, we had a question that came in from Han Wan, who says, Chase for Cup, Reed. Chase has tough schedule in the playoffs. If you need the wide receiver depth, I would say okay. If you do not need the depth, and both those guys are not starting on a weekly basis, I don't think it would be worth it in that circumstance. Thank you. Antonio Garcia says, in a full PPR, Dell, Marvin Harrison, Terry McLaurin, pick one of the 3 wide receivers. Yeah, it would be Dell as the starter. Thank you. CS Derek 13 says, would you drop Chase Brown or Goddard for McMillan? No. Unless you have another stud tight end that is already in position, I would never drop Chase Brown. It would only be Goddard as a consideration, but you'd have to have another stud tight end. Like you'd have to tell me like, Andrew, I have Brock Bowers. I don't even need Goddard. Then I'd be like, okay, we can make the swap. Smell My Fingers says full PPR, Hunt, Kamara, Mason, JT. Who's the odd man out? Okay, so as of right now, very difficult question to answer. Hunt and Mason are the 1 and 2 combo for sure. Between Kamara and JT, it becomes very difficult because I want to play Kamara, but the offense is a complete shit show without Derek Carr out there. So in this position, I think I probably go Hunt, Mason, and JT. Thank you. Ibrahim says in a 12-team full PPR, we have Swift, AJ Brown, JT, Kupp, Adams, Hopkins, Dobbs, Bowers. Should I trade AJ Brown and Swift for Malik Nabers and Achane, or AJ Brown and Swift for Henry or Walker or Hall? I would not do a 2-for-1 there. Nor would I actually... Okay, so I would consider the Malik and Achane side of this deal. But I think there's so much inherent potential for risk in both those scenarios. I think you just keep what you have. You've got 2 stud players that have been playing incredibly well as of late. I don't think you have to make a move. If you were going to make a move, you would trade it for Malik and Achane because Achane has more upside than Swift. And Malik, if Daniel Jones can pull his head out of his ass, can be even as good, if not better, than AJ Brown rest of the season in a full PPR. But for right now, I think it's pretty safe to kind of just keep what you have on roster. If you were going to make a swap, though, it would be for the Malik side, kind of buying low on his potential. Buffalo Bill sends in a question, says Superflex trade Josh Allen for Stafford and Amon-Ra in a 7-point per passing touchdown league. Also JSN or Shakir. Okay, so hold up. If you're sending away Josh Allen for Stafford, look, Stafford rest of the way should be a stud, just like he was late last season. If you guys remember, let me go ahead and let me pull this up for reference. So after Stafford came back from his thumb injury, I think there was a game last season where he left, or he didn't even play against Green Bay, and we went out there with like Ripon in Green Bay and we got slaughtered. So if I'm looking at this right now, if I go to like week 10 through 18 of last year, in terms of points per game, where's Stafford? That week 10 was their bye week. So it'd actually be week 11 through 17. So week 11 through 17 of last year, Matthew Stafford was the number 7 overall quarterback in a 4-point per passing touchdown league in terms of total points scored throughout that span of time. He had scored over 20 fantasy points in 4 of the 7 games. Pretty good overall streak. Now, In comparison to Josh Allen, a lesser option. But considering you get Amon-Ra St. Brown, I take the deal. Also, JSN or Shakir, I'll take JSN this weekend because of the absence of DK Metcalf. Hector Hernandez sends in the question. Thank you, Hector. Hector says, hey, Andrew, should I get Madison? Should I get Madison? And if so, who would you drop? I have Shakir, Wanda Robinson, McMillan, Pearsall, Tucker, and I have Tillman. Okay, so when you say Tucker, do you mean Trey Tucker? Or do you mean Tucker Kraft? The context on that would be utmost valuable. So let me know. Inky says Terry or Amon-Ra rest of season. Oh, no, that's not Amon-Ra. That's Amari. Sorry. Inky, take Terry rest of season. Anadi says in a half PPR flex, McBride, Ramondre, Khalil Shakir, or Pop Douglas. Between the 4 options, I think I'm playing McBride there. Yeah, pretty comfortably. D says, would I be a fool to not start Stroud this week and start a streaming option like Knicks and Russ? I mean, again, he plays against Indy. He has played incredibly well against that defense his entire career. I don't think last week is an indicator of what we're going to continue to see out of Stroud. Last week was just the worst week of his career. We saw that earlier this season with what's his name? Josh Allen, 9 of 31 passing. The next week after, dominates. Like, don't put that against him. Don't hold that performance against him. He's an elite quarterback. Start him this week. Let's see here. Rogo says pick 2 in week 8 upside. Standard half PPR. We have Mason, Hunt, Swift, Gibbs, and Montgomery. If I'm looking for ultimate upside, I think I'm just going to play with Gibbs and most likely Hunt in my lineup. That's the way that I go about it if I'm starting 2 of them. That's right, Aiden. Let's win some money this week. Let's hope. Jonathan says, in a week 8 tight end, Kincaid or Hunter Henry? I have Kincaid slightly ahead of him. The only reason I'm ever so kind of hesitant to start Hunter Henry is because the last time out against the Jets, he disappeared completely. So I'm worried that they're going to utilize the same thing in which they bracket covered him. They utilized a safety and a linebacker to just kind of bottle him up. And if they do it again, he'll just completely disappear. And that is what scares me. So I think that's what they'll probably do. And I'd rather just play Kincaid because it is just as good of a matchup. Jonathan says, flex 1, Chase Brown, Warren, Pearsall, Tolbert, Worthy. Under the assumption that it's a full PPR format, Jonathan, I'm going to lean towards playing Pearsall, number 1, Chase Brown 2, Warren 3, Worthy 4, Tolbert 5. Thank you. Hector Hernandez says Sean Tucker. Cool. Sean Tucker's the drop. I drop him immediately for Alexander Mattison. Alexander Mattison is the starting running back of the Raiders rest of the season and is very valuable. Thank you. Smell My Finger says, follow up to my previous question. Do I trade Kamara for a wide receiver or see what I can get for Mason plus Hunt? I have DK Metcalf. I have T. Higgins. I have Dell with McCaffrey on the IR. So in your current position, I'd be more inclined to, let's see if we can move Mason and Hunt and see what you can get in exchange. That's what I would rather do. But this being said, I want to keep Mason on roster just in case anything happens to McCaffrey. So my kind of audible to this overall scenario is probably just trading Hunt alongside of a wide receiver in order to get somebody else. So like I would trade Hunt plus maybe Dell to get a wide receiver in exchange. Maybe go after the team that has Pacheco, see if they want Hunt. Ingram or Waddle in the flex this week? I'd rather have Waddle. Wandell Robinson or D-Hop? I'd rather play Wandell Robinson. Bailey says, flex 1 in a full PPR. We have Chubb, we have Olave, we have Pearsall, we have Otten. Okay, so you've got really good options. Out of the group in a full PPR, though, my favorite options of the group would be Pearsall 1, Otten 2, Olave 3, Chubb 4. Thank you. Derek Doug says, McMillan, Coleman, or Pearsall? Pearsall would be the number 1. McMillan's number 2. Coleman's number 3. Thank you. How long have we been here for? An hour and 12? Not bad. Let's see what the score is of this Dodger game, man. I've been missing the whole game. Hopefully I can catch the last couple innings. It's the bottom of the ninth. Okay. So I think that's where we're going to call it, guys. I want to go catch the final inning of this game if it's going to go to extra innings. So that's where we're going to go. I appreciate y'all. Thank you very much for coming out, supporting the channel. Again, I'll be back tomorrow starting at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 3 p.m., a 2-hour live stream answering questions. Again, I'll also be back Sunday morning starting at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we'll have rankings up to date on screen ready to go. If you guys want my rankings every single Sunday morning, again, you can get it from my email directly to yours by signing up using code Andrew via Underdog Fantasy. Hector Hernandez says, Andrew, answering your question is Sean Tucker. No, I answered your question back. I said drop Sean Tucker. That would be the drop, brother. Get rid of him. And then also you can always check out the Patreon if you want rankings every Thursday and Sunday. And of course, on top of it, you can ask me unlimited questions on the overall Patreon Messenger by getting access to that. And of course, getting access to the Discord server. So if you're interested, check out those links. They're down in the description. I appreciate y'all. I'm going to go catch the end of this game. Hopefully my Dodgers are able to clutch this up. We're queuing the greatest guitar solo of all time. And until next time, have a great rest of your night. And I'll see you guys. Peace.